You lie still. The mattress hugs your spine, and the ceiling above you is calm and unmoving. It feels like the world is resting with you, quiet, certain, solid. But beneath your bed, beneath the floorboards and soil and ancient layers of rock, something is always stirring. The earth beneath your feet is not still. It moves, not in bursts or chaos, but in long, slow sighs. It shifts in deep rhythms too patient for your eyes, too vast for your senses. If you could listen with the ears of stone, you would hear it, a humming warmth, a deep time murmur as old as the planet itself. Beneath the crust, there is a sea, not of water, but of rock. This is the mantle, a place where stone flows like warm honey. It isn't liquid the way rain is liquid. It's solid, but soft. Heated by the core's ancient fire, the mantle rises and sinks in enormous, slow-moving currents called convection cells. These currents are Earth's breath, lifting and lowering continents with a patience that only geology knows. You're standing on a raft and you don't even know it. The continents, North America, Asia, Africa, all of them, are floating plates, drifting over this gentle sea of stone. Like lily pads on a pond, they seem motionless at first glance. But give them time, 1,000,000 years, or two, and they will be somewhere else entirely. Imagine this, you are watching a time-lapse from the moon. Centuries flash by like seconds. You see the Atlantic Ocean widening, South America pulling away from Africa like a sleeping child rolling from a parent's side. India rises swiftly from the south, racing toward Asia, as if called by some ancient longing. That movement you imagine is real. It has shaped mountains, torn oceans open, buried seabeds beneath sky-high peaks. But here, in your quiet moment of rest, it begins as a feeling, the awareness that the earth is more alive than it seems. The crust, the part you walk on, is surprisingly thin. Imagine the earth as an apple. The crust is the skin, brittle and cracked, but holding everything you know. Beneath it is the mantle, thick and warm and moving ever so slowly. And deeper still is the core, the earth's glowing heart, made of molten iron and nickel, spinning and churning, giving rise to Earth's magnetic field, guiding compass needles and migrating birds alike. But tonight, your story is with the mantle. That slow, rhythmic sea. The heat that moves it comes from within, from the leftover energy of Earth's violent birth and the slow decay of radioactive elements buried deep inside. These tiny atomic shivers release warmth, enough to keep the mantle soft, enough to move continents like icebergs on a hidden tide. You might think of Earth as a sleeping giant, but that wouldn't be quite right. A giant breathes deep, snores perhaps. Earth is more like a lullaby sung to itself, reshaping its skin as it hums its own story. Even now, this movement changes your world. The city you live in sits on one of these vast plates. Every building, every road, every tree is part of this ride, gliding slowly, perhaps an inch a year, toward another place. You are a passenger on a drifting continent. It's strange, isn't it? To think of something so vast and ancient as movement. But movement doesn't always mean noise. Sometimes, it means change too slow for a single lifetime to notice. Sometimes, it means invisible hands rearranging the world while we sleep. And still, beneath your bed, the rocks remember. They remember the time when all the land was one, a supercontinent called Pangaea, where dinosaurs walked from what is now Africa into South America without crossing an ocean. They remember its breaking, its drift, its slow reshaping of coastlines and climates. They carry those stories deep within them, layer upon layer, silent diaries of a planet in motion. Every stone has a story, if you wait long enough to hear it. Beneath Iceland, the mantle rises in a glowing plume, a hot spot of molten rock that pushes the crust apart, birthing new land where there was only sea. Beneath the Himalayas, the mantle shifts as India presses into Asia, and the crust crumples upward to meet the sky. You can feel the tension in these places, like a stretched breath. The earth is always adjusting, finding balance in its endless dance. Sometimes, this movement shows itself in the rumble of a distant earthquake, in the curling smoke of a volcano, in the slow rise of a mountain range. But most of the time, it remains hidden, like the steady, silent rise and fall of your own breath as you sleep. And perhaps this is the most beautiful part: the earth does not rush. It does not race to finish what it began. It allows the mountains to take their time, the oceans to widen slowly, the continents to drift at the pace of glaciers. It trusts the process. It leans into the rhythm. And you, lying still in your room, are part of that rhythm too. Your body holds minerals formed deep in the Earth's crust. Your bones contain calcium that once floated in ancient seas. The oxygen you breathe comes from a planet shaped by its moving plates, a planet that once wrapped its lands around volcanoes and oceans, then slowly let them go. The earth beneath your feet is not a silent witness. It is an active participant in everything you see. The rain that falls, the river that carves a canyon, the mountain that stands against time, all are children of the deep, slow dance beneath your toes. And now, as your eyelids grow heavy, you might imagine the ground not as stillness, but as story. You might feel the gentle current below, not in a physical way, but in a knowing way. You are held by a planet in motion, resting atop an ancient journey. A journey that never truly ends. You are floating, gently, on a sea of stone. You live on a shell, but it is not whole. What feels like a single solid ground beneath your feet, the hills, the sidewalks, the silent foundation under your bed, is not a single sheet of stone, but a mosaic of massive fragments. These fragments are called tectonic plates, and they do not sit still. They glide slowly across the Earth's surface, floating on the softer mantle beneath, moving like rafts atop an underground ocean of slow-flowing rock. You are always traveling, even in sleep, carried gently by a continent that dreams in motion. But where these plates meet, something changes. These places are not smooth. Not kind. They are where the crust begins to whisper, to groan, to resist. They are where tension builds quietly, over years, centuries, until the ground must speak. Imagine the crust as the outer skin of an orange, cracked into pieces not by accident but by pressure from within. The warmth of Earth's inner body rises, pushing upward, while the crust cools and shrinks above. The result is a pattern of breaks, like dried mud in a summer field, beautiful from far away, but marked by tension in every line. These cracks, these fault lines, are where Earth's story stutters and reshapes. Where plates press together, they might fold and rise, forming mountains. Where they pull apart, they open up rifts, where the planet makes new crust from molten stone. And where they scrape side by side, neither yielding, the ground holds its breath, until it cannot anymore. You live atop this dance of contact and collision. There are 7 major plates, and many more minor ones, each one distinct in size and speed. Some move only centimeters per year. Some move faster, almost impatient. The Pacific Plate, for example, slides beneath its neighbors like a silent tide. The African Plate stretches, slowly tearing apart in the east, opening the future of a new ocean. These movements are not chaos. They are structure. The pattern of plates, their slow, steady drift and collision, is how the Earth regulates its surface. Without these motions, mountains would erode away with time, oceans would stagnate, and the crust would grow thick and brittle, unable to release its internal heat. Plate tectonics is not just movement. It is balance. And yet, balance does not always look peaceful. Where plates converge, crashing, folding, you find chains of mountains and deep oceanic trenches. The Himalayas, still rising from the push of India into Asia, remind you that even continents bruise. In the Pacific, where one plate dives under another, molten rock rises in return, feeding volcanoes that dot the ring of fire. Where plates diverge, pulling apart, the Earth stretches like dough. New land is born from magma as it cools and hardens. Iceland, perched atop a spreading boundary, sits on the seam where the Eurasian and North American plates drift apart. The ground there grows slowly, year by year, as if breathing outward. And where plates slide past one another, transform boundaries, the edges catch, grind, and release. The San Andreas Fault in California is one such place. Silent for years. Then, in a moment, it speaks in tremors. You do not feel this tension in your daily life, but it shapes you all the same. The coastlines you walk, the valleys you live between, the ridges that define your horizon, all come from these shifting seams. It is a strange kind of beauty, the fragility of something that seems so firm. Friction is part of this process. The plates do not move without resistance. Where they meet, they resist. They stick. They grip the mantle or one another, accumulating stress like a bowstring pulled tighter and tighter. This is how earthquakes begin. Not with movement, but with stillness, a stillness that cannot hold. And yet, not every crack causes chaos. Some faults slip quietly, without fanfare. Some stretches of crust adjust slowly, offering their tension to time rather than catastrophe. These are known as creeping faults, a softer breath in Earth's conversation. There is also beauty in the way things rebuild. In places where plates diverge, the Earth heals itself with new rock. Lava rises from deep below and spreads into the gap, forming new crust that cools into basalt, dark and solid, fresh from the mantle's warmth. You are standing on stories like this every day. The pavement you walk may be built from ancient volcanic flows, from stone that once filled a rift in the earth. And in the deep sea, this cycle is always underway. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a massive underwater mountain chain, stretches like a seam across the ocean floor. Here, the earth is unzipping itself. Magma bubbles up and hardens, forming new seabed, spreading continents apart. This is the quiet architecture of a planet that builds as it breaks. You can think of these cracks not as flaws, but as expressions, places where the earth reveals its inner life. Every fault line, every fracture, is a sentence in the language of stone. And like poetry, these lines carry more meaning than they first appear to. They speak of change, of memory, of the slow balance between force and form. The tension between plates is not unlike the tension within you. Inside your chest, emotions shift. Some thoughts drift gently apart. Others press inward, colliding. You hold memories the way the earth holds heat, quietly, for long stretches, until something rises. Cracks are not only geological. They are human too. And just like the earth, you rebuild. Over time, what was broken becomes a new pattern. A new landscape forms. Just as rivers follow fault lines, carving their way through broken stone, your mind finds meaning through its fractures. The ground that opens can also carry water. Life flows through what once was torn. You can trust the ground again, even when it moves. Because the crust, for all its cracks, is still home. And its shifting does not mean collapse. It means transformation. In the breaking, there is becoming. Now, as your breath slows, picture the earth from above, dark oceans swirling, green continents drifting slowly apart. See the faint, glowing seams where plates meet. Hear the deep silence between tremors. The crust may be cracked, but it is also alive, speaking in heat and stone and time. You are part of this grand, quiet motion. As you drift deeper into rest, you begin to sense the coming story. For where plates meet most intimately, not just scrape or drift, something new arises. The ground folds. The surface lifts. Whole mountains are born from a single collision. And so the earth begins to rise. You close your eyes, and the world becomes still. But deep beneath your stillness, earth remembers movement. It remembers the long, slow drift of its skin. How land once curled together like resting bodies, then gradually, gently, began to drift apart. This drift is not a rush, not a race. It is a glide. Continents, vast and ancient, are passengers on an invisible current. They float, not on water, but on rock made soft by heat. You are riding one now, even as you rest. The surface of the earth is not fixed. It never has been. The continents that now seem permanent and proud, Africa, Asia, the Americas, have not always stood where they do. They were once joined, curled around one another in a single massive embrace. This was Pangaea, a supercontinent, like a puzzle with no missing pieces, stretched wide across a quieter world. But even in that stillness, the earth moved. Heat rose from deep below. The mantle whispered and swelled, pushing gently, persistently. Cracks formed. Tiny rifts widened. The puzzle began to loosen. Slowly, so slowly, the land began to drift. And now, the continents roam. They are giants, yes, but not immovable. They are dancers on a stage of stone, each step taken over millions of years. If you could speed up time, watch the centuries blur, you'd see them slide across the globe like boats in slow motion, leaving ripples behind. Take India, for instance. Once nestled near the southern edge of Pangaea, it was part of the ancient landmass called Gondwana. But around 120 million years ago, it began to pull away, as if stirred by some quiet calling from the north. Alone, it journeyed, drifting across the open ocean at a surprising pace. 5 centimeters a year. Then 6. Then more. In geological terms, India was sprinting. Like a runaway raft on a molten sea, it moved faster than most, heading straight for the sleeping lands of Asia. And when it arrived, the world changed. It didn't stop at the shore. It collided, pressed, folded. The crust buckled and rose. From that slow and powerful crash, the Himalayas were born. A scar of beauty across the sky, still growing even now. You can feel the echo of that journey in the stones. In the mountains that pierce the clouds. In the earthquakes that tremble near the edges. The drift of India wasn't a brief moment. It was, and still is, a story in motion. But India is only one of many wanderers. Look at South America, peeling away from Africa like a page turned too slowly. Even now, the Atlantic Ocean grows wider as the two continents drift apart, carried by the mid-ocean ridge beneath them, where new crust forms like cooling wax. Or Australia, drifting northward toward Southeast Asia, like a forgotten island rejoining the map. Every continent is a voyager. Their paths are shaped by the deep, slow churn of the mantle, convection currents rising and falling beneath them, carrying heat outward, carrying the crust along. You can't see these currents. You can't feel them beneath your feet. But they are always there, guiding the plates like invisible hands beneath a stage. And though these plates are rigid, their edges are not. At their borders, they press and grind. They fold and fracture. They create new land, and sometimes destroy the old. This is how Iceland exists, split by a seam where the Eurasian and North American plates move apart, drawing up molten rock that cools into land. And how the San Andreas Fault shifts, marking the boundary where two plates slide past each other, not in harmony, but in friction. The Earth's surface is made of these drifting pieces. Like icebergs in a quiet sea. Like dreams slowly rearranging themselves while you sleep. And you are a passenger in that dream. A rider on a raft of crust. You feel steady only because your time is small. But in Earth's time, you are moving always, not just through your life, but across the surface of a world that never stands still. Even the land beneath your home was once somewhere else. It may have once been part of a desert. Or the floor of an ancient sea. It may have slid past volcanoes long vanished, or pressed against other lands that are now entire oceans away. Your soil has a story written in drift. There is peace in that thought, that nothing stays the same. That change, even when slow, is part of everything. That movement can be gentle and true. That even giants drift when guided by warmth. And yet, the journey is not random. There is a rhythm to this drift, a cycle older than memory. Supercontinents form and break apart in grand pulses. Every few 100 million years, the continents gather again, like family returning after long seasons apart. They merge. They rest. Then slowly, inevitably, they part once more. This cycle has a name, the supercontinent cycle. Pangaea was not the first. It will not be the last. Before it, there was Rodinia, and before that, Columbia. Each time, Earth reimagines itself. Each time, the drift begins anew. So when you look at a map and see countries fixed in place, remember that they are only pausing. The world is not a snapshot. It is a film still playing. A long, slow scene where stone plays the lead. And even now, scientists see hints of what may come. Africa shifting north. The Atlantic growing wider. Perhaps, one day, a new supercontinent will rise. Perhaps it will gather near the equator, or wrap itself around the pole. Perhaps it will bear a new name, Amasia, or Pangaea Proxima, words for the land not yet born. But tonight, you don't need to know where it will go. You only need to know that it moves. That beneath your bed, your street, your city. The land itself is gliding on a hidden tide. A tide of heat. A tide of time. And so you drift too, not just in sleep, but in place. You are part of the planet's journey, held in its rhythm. Your body still, but your world alive. As you breathe, the earth breathes with you. As you rest, the continents continue their silent waltz. The drift never stops. The story never ends. And ahead, where plates meet again, not just side by side, but face to face, another tale begins. The story of pressure, and folding, and the rise of stone into sky. You are lying still, but the earth is in motion. Not all at once, not everywhere, but in certain places, the edges, the seams, the lines where the puzzle pieces meet. It's here, in these quiet margins, that the planet reshapes itself. Where plates meet, Earth speaks. Not loudly, not always with tremors, but with pressure, with shifting, with slow choreography written in stone. These boundaries are not scars, they are the very places where new worlds begin. You feel so far from this motion, and yet it surrounds you. The sidewalk you walk, the mountains you admire, the ocean's deepest trenches, all were born from the whispering collisions of these titanic slabs. Tectonic plates do not float aimlessly. They are carried, guided by the slow churn of the mantle's warmth beneath them. As they move, they meet. And not all meetings are the same. Some are gentle. Some are fierce. Some are patient. But none are still. These meetings fall into three types: converging, diverging, and sliding. Each one is a story. Each one leaves its mark. You begin with convergence, when two plates push into each other, slow but unstoppable. Imagine two great icebergs drifting toward one another, pressing chest to chest. Neither wants to yield. So they rise. They wrinkle the Earth's surface, folding crust into sky. This is how mountains are made. The Himalayas, still growing from the collision of India with Asia, are one of the most powerful examples of this. There, two continental plates press together, and because both are too buoyant to sink, they rise, caught in an eternal embrace. The crust thickens. The peaks sharpen. Earth reaches upward. But not all convergence rises. Sometimes, one plate slides beneath another, in a process called subduction. It happens when an oceanic plate, heavier and denser, meets a lighter continental plate. Quietly, it dips below, disappearing into the deep. Where this happens, deep trenches are carved, long, dark valleys beneath the sea. The Mariana Trench is one. It's the deepest part of Earth's ocean, a place where the crust folds into the mantle, unseen and ancient. Above these subduction zones, volcanoes often bloom. As the sinking plate melts, its rock turns to magma. This hot, buoyant rock rises again, feeding fiery mountains at the surface. It's a cycle of descent and renewal, rock swallowed, then reborn as fire. You might think of it as Earth's exhale, the planet breathing out the warmth it holds within. Then there are the divergent boundaries, where plates pull apart. These places seem like wounds, but they are beginnings. Along mid-ocean ridges, such as the one that runs like a seam through the Atlantic, magma rises as plates drift away. New crust forms in the gap. The ocean floor widens, slowly, like a page unfolding. On land, this same process stretches continents. In East Africa, a rift is forming, the early stages of a new ocean, though it will take millions of years to open. You stand at the edge of such futures without knowing it. The Earth is always imagining new shapes for itself. And finally, there are transform boundaries, places where plates slide past one another, shoulder to shoulder. This is not a crash or a stretch, but a rubbing. A friction. These boundaries are quiet most days, but they hold a different kind of energy, stored, waiting. When they slip, they do so suddenly. The San Andreas Fault in California is one of these. The Earth locks for years, then lets go all at once. Earthquakes begin here, not as punishment, but as release. The crust cannot hold its tension forever. And in letting go, it reminds you of something human. Even stone needs to shift sometimes. Even pressure must find its path. These boundaries are not sharp lines. They are zones, sometimes wide, sometimes narrow, where the crust is in negotiation. Where the land learns to move differently. Where valleys sink, or ranges lift, or rivers twist to follow the tremble of stone. And you, without knowing it, walk along these edges every day. The streets you cross may lie atop ancient faults. The hills you admire may be folded crust. Even the gravel beneath your feet carries the memory of a tectonic meeting long ago. To live on Earth is to live near motion. At these plate boundaries, change is constant, even if invisible. New minerals form. Pressure builds. Landscapes shift. Life adapts. These are not places of danger alone, they are places of origin. Volcanoes erupt, yes, but they also nourish. Ash falls and fertilizes soil. Islands rise from lava and become homes. And deep beneath all this, the mantle continues its slow, warm circulation, feeding this endless cycle. Rise, drift, collide, sink. The Earth doesn't rush. It turns its pages slowly. Sometimes, you can feel this rhythm inside yourself. Not in your bones or skin, but in how you hold pressure. In how you adapt. In how you meet the edge of something and must choose to rise, to fold, or to let go. You, too, have boundaries. Some you built. Some you crossed. Some you met unexpectedly. But in each meeting, there was change. A deepening. A crack that became a door. Where plates meet, new worlds begin. Even now, as you lie quiet, the Earth is adjusting. Pushing in one place. Stretching in another. Slipping quietly elsewhere. It is a gentle reminder that tension is not the end. It is often the beginning. And if you could listen close enough, not with your ears, but with your awareness, you might hear it. The murmuring grind of crust meeting crust. The soft echo of stone shaping stone. A language older than words, but never silent. You are safe in this movement. You are part of it. You are cradled in the middle of a planet that knows how to change. And ahead, just beyond this moment of pressure and folding, something rises. Not underground. Not hidden. But high. Into sky, into breath, into a horizon made of stone and story. You are standing in a valley, though you do not see it. The walls are distant, so tall, so ancient, that their summits seem like pieces of sky torn loose and fixed in stone. Above you, the air thins. The wind slows. Clouds cling to the jagged spines of peaks that were once deep ocean floor. This is where the earth rises to meet itself. Mountains are not made in moments. They are born of pressure. Of patience. Of long embraces between lands too stubborn to yield. When continents collide, they do not shatter. They fold. They rise. They become something new. You are breathing the echo of that rising. Beneath the world you know, plates move. You've seen how they drift, how they separate, how they shift along cracks and seams. But sometimes, they move toward one another, slowly, steadily, like distant relatives drawn back together after ages apart. And when they meet, they don't pass by. They press. India, carried by the invisible hands of mantle current, once floated in the southern hemisphere. It drifted north, crossing the ocean, journeying like a solitary ship toward Asia. The ocean between them, the Tethys Sea, narrowed. Closed. And then, some 50 million years ago, the collision began. It is still happening. India did not stop at Asia's shore. It continues to push, even now, centimeter by centimeter, like a memory trying to return home. But the continental crust is thick, buoyant. It cannot simply sink. So it crumples. The earth folds upward. And from that folding, the Himalayas rise, the highest mountains on the planet, still climbing, still shifting with every soft breath of tectonic motion. You may picture this in stillness, a map, a photograph. But the truth is more fluid. The crust behaves like clay pressed in slow motion. Ridges form. Valleys deepen. Rock bends, layer over layer, like sheets in a tightly packed drawer. Pressure creates form. Time holds it in place. These folds are not fragile. They are firm with the memory of motion. But the mountain is more than a monument. It is a living archive. Within its stone are stories written in sediment, ancient fossils lifted from the sea, now perched above the clouds. Shells of marine creatures lie in Himalayan limestone, evidence of a time when these peaks were not peaks at all, but ocean floor. The mountain remembers where it came from. So do you. The Himalayas are not alone in their origin. Every range, the Alps, the Andes, the Appalachians, is a page in this geologic story. Each was born of collision, pressed into being by the slow, deliberate force of one land meeting another. In South America, the Andes rise from the subduction of the oceanic Nazca Plate beneath the continental South American Plate. There, instead of a head-on push, one plate dives beneath the other, and magma rises to meet it. Volcanic peaks crown the crest. But still, the crust folds, thickens, and lifts. Every mountain is an act of resistance and becoming. You walk through valleys carved between them, unaware of the forces that built their walls. But look closer. The rocks tell you everything. You can see the folds like ripples in fabric, like the pleats of an ancient garment. You can see layers that once lay flat now tilted, lifted, twisted by millions of years of motion. Touch one of these rocks and you touch deep time. Even the trees growing at the base of these giants are part of the story. Their roots wrap around stone once buried miles below. They reach upward, as if mimicking the mountain's rise. And their leaves, catching the wind, echo the slow breath of earth reshaping itself from within. Mountain building, or orogeny, is not a single event. It is a rhythm. A long cycle of uplift and erosion, of creation and wearing down. As the crust rises, weather and water begin their gentle work. Wind smooths the edges. Rivers carve their paths. The very mountain that once pushed skyward begins to return to the sea. But erosion is not destruction. It is memory being carried outward. The dust from high places settles in lowlands, in deltas, in distant ocean beds. One day, perhaps, it will be lifted again. Even as you sleep, pieces of mountain flake into riverbeds. Sediment travels, stone becomes sand, and the cycle continues. All of this begins with a collision, not violent, not immediate, but insistent. There's a tenderness to it, really. Two ancient bodies moving toward one another with the force of deep time. They do not retreat. They do not pass. They meet, and from that meeting, something immense is born. You might feel this too, the way resistance gives shape, the way pressure builds strength. In your life, as in the crust, it is often through meeting what pushes back that you become more defined. There's a lesson in the mountain's spine. Sometimes, we imagine change as sudden, a bolt of transformation. But the earth knows better. Change can be gradual. Beautiful. Pressed from the patience of two forces holding one another without letting go. It can be slow enough to miss in a lifetime. And yet steady enough to shape the sky. And so, as you rest, imagine the crust lifting slowly beneath you. Not enough to disturb your breath, but enough to remind you that even the most solid things are shaped by invisible movement. You are not apart from this. You are made from it. The calcium in your bones may have once been part of an ancient sea. The iron in your blood was forged in Earth's fiery heart. The molecules in your body know the feel of pressure, of folding, of being reshaped and reformed. You are a mountain in your own way, rising, weathering, rising again. Let that truth soften your thoughts tonight. Let it settle around you like cool air drifting down from snowy peaks. You are not still, not static. Even in rest, you are becoming. And ahead, beneath the next layer of this planetary rhythm, something opens again. For not all plates push together. Some pull apart, creating spaces where oceans form and continents drift in opposite directions. And from those widening gaps, new stories emerge. You are lying on quiet ground, but far beneath, something is parting. Not in anger, not with noise, but slowly, silently. The crust stretches. The rock thins. A breath of separation begins. And in that opening space, new things are born. Not all movement is collision. Sometimes, the most profound changes begin with letting go. You imagine two landmasses that were once connected, a single shape, whole and confident. But under the surface, the mantle stirs. Warmth rises, and the crust above it feels the tug. Ever so gently, a crack begins. Just a sliver. A suggestion of space. This is how an ocean is born. It starts with a rift, a place where the earth begins to pull itself apart. The ground stretches, thins, and splits. Valleys sink. Fissures widen. And from deep below, molten rock rises to fill the gaps. You do not see it. You do not hear it. But the earth is opening beneath you, like a book revealing a new page. This is a divergent boundary, a seam in the skin of the planet where tectonic plates drift away from one another. And like all departures, it holds both tension and possibility. Picture the crust as warm dough being pulled in two directions. It stretches first, resisting. Then it cracks, and new material fills the opening. This material is basalt, dark and dense, born from the mantle's breath. It rises as lava, then cools into solid stone, becoming the floor of a newborn sea. The process is slow. So slow that you could live 100 lifetimes and see only a few inches gained. But time is the sculptor here, and it does not tire. Take your mind to East Africa. There, the ground is splitting apart, not suddenly, but gradually, like the exhale of something ancient. This is the East African Rift, a place where the African plate is dividing, inch by inch, into two. Deep valleys stretch the land, volcanoes rise, and lakes settle into the lowest points. One day, perhaps millions of years from now, this rift may widen into an ocean. The land on either side will drift apart, and the waters will fill the void. And a new ocean will cradle the memory of a continent that once stood whole. Now float gently to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, to a seam that runs down its spine, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. It is not a single crack, but a sprawling underwater mountain range, longer than any on land, hidden beneath the waves. Here, the Eurasian Plate and the North American Plate pull apart to the north, while the South American Plate and the African Plate drift away to the south. From these partings, the Atlantic Ocean is born, still widening, still growing. You can imagine it in time-lapse. Iceland pulling slowly from Greenland. Africa easing away from Brazil. A dance of continents so slow it feels like stillness, but it is not. In this widening, Earth creates something new. New crust. New seafloor. New space. The basalt that fills the gap at mid-ocean ridges is like the Earth's handwriting, line after line, marking time as plates drift. Each layer tells a story, the temperature of the mantle, the direction of the magnetic field, the rhythm of ancient spreading. And it is here, at these ridges, that Earth performs quiet miracles. There are no crashing waves or towering volcanoes on the surface. But beneath, at depths where sunlight never reaches, heat and life emerge. From cracks in the seafloor, hydrothermal vents spew mineral-rich water, black and warm like ink. And around them, life blooms, strange, glowing creatures that do not need sunlight, only heat and chemistry. You might think oceans are the end result, but they are also beginnings. They are places where the planet experiments with balance. Where land lets go and becomes sea. Where the Earth reminds itself how to start again. And this starting again is not limited to the ocean. It exists in the crust beneath your feet, in every place where the ground gently pulls apart. It exists in the valleys you walk through. In the soil that holds volcanic ash. In the lava flows that once sealed the cracks with quiet fire. Let your thoughts drift now to a single moment of transformation. The sky glows red over an empty plain. Molten rock spills from a fissure, pooling into silence. The air smells of minerals and heat. And when the fire cools, a thin black crust forms, the first breath of a new world. This moment, though quiet, reshapes everything. And like so many things in nature, it happens slowly enough not to frighten. It invites patience. It asks you to wait. You feel something here, something familiar. The act of making space. The quiet courage of pulling away from what once was whole. Not because of anger, not because of loss. But because growth sometimes requires distance. The Earth shows you this truth, gently. Not all separation is destruction. Sometimes, it is creation. Sometimes, letting go is how something vast, an ocean, a valley, a breath, comes into being. And while the mountains rise from pressure, the oceans rise from parting. Each is sacred. Each is a path. You may think of your life now. Of how you hold on. Of how sometimes, you must release. To grow. To become. To make room for the sea you have not yet seen. Beneath your quiet bed, the earth stretches. Crust drifts. Basalt cools. The mid-ocean ridge hums in its endless work. You are part of that rhythm, even now. A creature of land and water. Of memory and movement. And just ahead, on the other side of this wide new ocean, something stirs again. A rim. A ring. A trembling fire. You are resting now, as still as stone, but the earth is not. Beneath the gentle surface of your world, something stirs, ancient, warm, and constant. You lie in quiet, yet below the crust, immense plates shift with slow, deliberate intent. Around the edge of the Pacific Ocean, this motion draws a glowing circle beneath the sea and land. A trembling crown of heat and transformation. It is called the Ring of Fire. This ring is not made of flame, though fire lives inside it. It is not drawn in red, though its eruptions burn hot. It is made from movement, from the slow, powerful churning of Earth's shell. It circles the Pacific like a breath around the world, marked by volcanoes, earthquakes, deep ocean trenches, and rising mountains. You might imagine it as a string of glowing beads, each one pulsing with energy, hidden beneath waves or reaching skyward in snowy peaks. But what links them isn't what you see, it's what lies beneath. Here, at the ring's edge, Earth's plates meet in a different way. Not side by side. Not drifting apart. But one slipping under the other, into the deep, hot mantle. This is subduction, a downward dive of crust, heavy and cold, sinking into the warmth below. The Pacific Plate, vast and ocean-bound, pushes under lighter continental plates. The motion is slow, centimeters a year, yet unstoppable. Over millions of years, this sinking creates chains of volcanoes and valleys of great depth. Where the plate melts, magma forms, a thick, glowing river of rock that rises through the crust above. It pushes upward through faults, cracks, and fissures, erupting sometimes with ash and fury, other times with slow, steady flow. These volcanoes are more than mountains. They are breathing points, Earth's way of releasing inner heat. You begin in South America, along the towering Andes. The Nazca Plate slides beneath the continent, giving rise to stratovolcanoes, tall, layered mountains that erupt in cycles of ash and lava. Their slopes are steep. Their roots are deep. They carry the story of tension and time. Northward, through Central America, the crust tells the same tale. In Guatemala, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, volcanoes emerge like beads on a fault-threaded necklace. Some hiss quietly. Some sleep for centuries. Others wake in fire. And in Mexico, Popocatépetl rises, tall and solemn, its name whispering through clouds. It watches over valleys, over people, over memory. It smolders, not in rage, but in restlessness. Move further north, and the San Andreas Fault draws a different line, where two plates slide past, not beneath. But beyond it, along the Cascades, volcanoes return. Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, all born of subduction. All shaped by magma's patient ascent. Across the sea, Alaska bends with its own tectonic grace. The Aleutian Islands form a sweeping arc, each island the crest of a submarine volcano. Earthquakes are common here, not because the land is angry, but because it is moving. And then, across the cold Pacific, Japan. Here, four plates meet in tangled conversation, the Pacific, the Philippine Sea, the Eurasian, and the Okhotsk. Subduction defines the landscape. Volcanoes lace the country like stitches on a shifting skin. Mount Fuji, serene and symbolic, is one of them. A sacred cone of ash and symmetry. Earthquakes here are sudden, sometimes severe. In 2011, the Tohoku earthquake ruptured the seabed, lifting and shifting the ocean floor. The resulting tsunami swept over cities, reshaping lives in moments. It was a reminder, the Ring of Fire is not just geology. It is human, too. It touches all. Farther south, the Philippines tremble on the edge of plates. Luzon, Mindanao, Visayas, islands etched by subduction. The tall volcano sleeps within a lake, within a larger lake, a crater within a crater, layered like time itself. And deeper still, in Indonesia, the ring burns brightest. The Sunda Arc, part of the Australian plate diving beneath the Sunda Plate, births volcanoes like Krakatoa, Tambora, and Merapi. Each name carries story, ash, and memory. Tambora's 1815 eruption cloaked the world in cold. The year without a summer, they called it. Here, in this ring, the earth has a voice, not always loud, but always present. In the southern sweep, New Zealand balances along the edge, where the Pacific Plate dives beneath the Indo-Australian Plate. Volcanoes rise on the North Island. Earthquakes ripple through Wellington. The crust here is young, complex, and ever-changing. And under the water, hidden from view, the ring continues. Hydrothermal vents dot the seafloor, geysers of mineral-rich water, warmed by magma below. Around them, strange life forms cluster, glowing, thriving, needing no sunlight. Life here is ancient, alien, beautiful. So why this ring? Because the Pacific Ocean is framed by subduction zones, places where oceanic plates are surrounded by lighter, buoyant continents. The Pacific Plate is shrinking, pulled inward on all sides. Its edges are not calm. They are alive with transformation. You begin to see that the Ring of Fire is not a border, it is a process. A cycle. One plate dives. Magma rises. Volcano forms. Eruption spreads ash and minerals. Plants bloom in rich soil. Life begins again. Volcanoes, though feared, give much. The land around them is fertile. The minerals in their ash enrich the earth. Ancient civilizations built cities near volcanoes not despite the danger, but because of the gifts. Crops grow better here. Forests are lush. Springs run warm. And when they erupt, yes, they take, but they also give back. It is not a cycle of punishment. It is a balance. Destruction and creation, intertwined. The way a forest burns and later blooms. The way skin heals thicker where it was once broken. Even the Mariana Trench, the deepest point on Earth, is part of this ring. The Pacific Plate dives beneath the Mariana Plate, deeper than anywhere else, almost 11 kilometers down. It is a place of quiet pressure, of slow descent. Not empty, but full of invisible life, adapted to wait and silence. Everywhere along the Ring of Fire, Earth reminds you that its power is slow and layered. You do not see a volcano form in your lifetime. But it forms. You may not feel every tremor. But they happen, like whispered breaths. This ring is not a place. It is a state of becoming. A circle of motion. A wheel of pressure and release. A reminder that beneath your stillness, the world burns gently with change. And you, even now, resting in your bed, are part of it. You carry iron in your blood, born from Earth's inner fires. You walk on ground shaped by ancient eruptions. You breathe air touched by volcanic gases. You eat food grown in soil fed by ash. The Ring of Fire is not far. It is within you. And as your thoughts soften, your breath slowing into sleep, you begin to feel the rhythm of the planet. Not in fear, but in familiarity. The Earth is not still. It never was. It shifts not to punish, but to create. To become what it was not. To remember what it can be. And as you drift inward, lulled by the warmth of lava below and the hush of shifting plates above, you sense something else approaching. A new kind of movement. Not upward in fire, but sideways in silence. Where plates no longer meet or part. But slide beside each other. Holding tension in the shadows of fault lines. You rest tonight in the quiet arms of stillness. But far beneath your bed, the world is holding a breath it cannot keep. Not all tension is loud. Some of it is quiet. So quiet, it feels like peace. But beneath the surface of continents, an ancient kind of tension stirs, slow, invisible, and constant. The Earth is not angry. It does not seethe or boil here. Instead, it waits, holding pressure the way you sometimes hold emotion, tightly, gently, until it can't be held anymore. Where plates meet and slide beside one another, this waiting lives. These are transformed boundaries, places where rock brushes against rock, locked in friction. Neither plate gives way. Neither wants to. They press, resist, and hesitate. Every day, they try to move forward, but the edges catch, snagging like fabric drawn over a rough seam. This is how an earthquake begins. Not in an explosion, but in a pause that holds too long. Picture two hands pressed flat against each other, palms aligned, moving in opposite directions. The skin resists. It sticks. But eventually, something slips, suddenly, sharply. The tension is released in an instant. What was silent becomes motion. You feel the earth do this, from time to time. The shaking might last seconds. The memory, years. Take your thoughts now to California, where the San Andreas Fault threads through the state like a buried river of pressure. The Pacific Plate and the North American Plate are not colliding or drifting apart, they are sliding past, like two lives moving side by side. But the contact isn't smooth. The crust resists, bends, and eventually, breaks free with a jolt. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake was such a jolt. The fault slipped, the city trembled, and the earth exhaled. Streets cracked. Walls crumbled. Fires followed. But underneath the fear was science, something trying to make sense of the shift. The plates hadn't rebelled. They had realigned. You begin to see, earthquakes are not eruptions of anger. They are moments of necessary release. And they happen all over the world. In Turkey, the North Anatolian Fault carves the land like a deep sigh caught in stone. In New Zealand, the Alpine Fault shapes the land's very bones, mountains rise, rivers bend, and the crust beneath your feet never truly rests. Even far from plate boundaries, the ground sometimes trembles. These are intraplate earthquakes, reminders that ancient faults run like veins deep within the crust. Even where the plates don't touch, stress can gather. In Missouri, the New Madrid seismic zone holds echoes of massive 19th-century quakes that rang church bells in Boston. The earth remembers its old scars. And sometimes, it reopens them. Stillness does not mean stability. The ground may feel solid, but it breathes. Slowly, patiently, with tectonic lungs. When the crust finally moves, the shaking begins. And it moves in waves. The first to arrive are P waves, or primary waves. Fast and subtle, they ripple through rock like whispers. Then come S waves, slower, side-to-side waves that roll the ground, like ocean swells beneath your feet. These are the waves that twist roads and tilt buildings, that shake the air and scatter sleep. And from those waves, we listen. All across the earth, quiet instruments stand guard, seismometers, listening with ink, with lasers, with silence. When the earth moves, they draw its voice. A squiggling line, jittering across paper or screen. A signature. A story. You look at those lines, and you don't just see motion. You see memory. You see where the slip began, the epicenter, and how deep it sat, the focus. You see its strength, measured in magnitude, and how far its voice was carried. The science of earthquakes doesn't remove their fear. But it gives us tools to hear their song more clearly. You might imagine the crust as a frozen lake, cracked in places, groaning beneath pressure. Sometimes, it holds. Sometimes, it breaks. And when it does, the tremors ripple out, not to harm, but to realign. Earthquakes aren't just about the shake. They are about what the earth becomes after. Sometimes, the land rises. A new hill. A tilted road. Sometimes, it drops, a valley where there was none. Faults offset rivers. Split fences. Push train tracks sideways. In Japan, where the earth holds deep seams of pressure, buildings are designed not to resist shaking, but to move with it. Skyscrapers sway like trees. Roads flex. And people practice drills, not because the earth is cruel, but because it is alive. The earth is not fixed. Neither are we. What is rigid breaks. What moves survives. In the heart of the Himalayas, the Indian plate continues to push northward, pressing into Asia, lifting mountains, and triggering quakes. The 2015 Nepal earthquake was born from that movement, from pressure held too long and released too fast. But after the quake, people rebuilt. Temples were repaired. Streets reopened. Lives resumed. Not unchanged, but changed with purpose. Because earthquakes remind us that what shakes can also settle. And in some places, the shaking never stops. In Chile, along the subduction boundary between the Nazca and South American plates, the crust is in constant conversation. Large quakes come often. But the land is prepared. The people listen. The buildings bend. The science grows. Not all faults are known. Many lie hidden, asleep in deep stone. But seismologists, those who listen to the Earth's heartbeat, are always learning. They map past quakes. They read pressure zones. They build models. They can't predict the moment, but they can anticipate the patterns. And slowly, we learn to live with uncertainty. You, too, carry tension in your bones. You hold things you don't speak. You feel pressure in your chest, in your shoulders, in your silences. Sometimes, you quake. Not out of failure, but out of honesty. And when you do, when you shake, when something inside shifts, it is not the end. It is release. It is a return to balance. Earthquakes do not destroy the earth. They reshape it. They draw new paths. They open new ways. And once the tremor fades, there is stillness again. Not the same stillness, but one that knows more, holds more, accepts more. You feel that now, a gentler quiet. A settled breath. The air after a storm. Because the earth is not angry. It is adjusting. It is always, always adjusting. You are not so different. And as you drift into sleep, rocked by this knowledge, a new layer of wonder begins to rise, not from the crust, but from below it. Where stone flows like breath. And pressure becomes not quake, but current. A warm, slow tide that stirs the solid mantle from within. You are cradled now by the earth's quiet rhythm. Still, slow, deep as breath. And beneath this stillness, a pattern unfolds. Not in days or years. But in movements that span millions of lifetimes. Beneath your resting body lies a memory older than mountains. A history written not in books, but in stone. Long ago, before the world looked like it does now. Before there were 7 continents with names like Africa, Asia, and Antarctica. There was one. One massive continent. One unified land. Its name was Pangaea, all Earth. A supercontinent that once gathered nearly all landmasses into a single, sweeping cradle of stone. Imagine it. A world where the Appalachians curled into the Scottish Highlands. Where South America pressed into the belly of Africa. Where India slept beside Antarctica. A world before oceans knew their names. Before the continents drifted apart like forgotten friends. But nothing in the earth remains unchanged. And so Pangaea, slowly, quietly, began to break. The crust beneath it cracked. The heat below it stirred. New oceans were born, and the pieces began to drift. East, west, north, south. In directions shaped by molten breath beneath the crust. This is the supercontinent cycle. A grand, planetary rhythm of gathering and scattering. Convergence and divergence. As natural and enduring as the tides. Like your breath, in and out. The earth, too, inhales and exhales its continents. You live in an exhale. The drift. The scatter. But the inhale will come again. Pangaea was not the first. Before it came Rodinia, and before that, Columbia. Each one rising, breaking, drifting apart, and rising again. Over and over. Over billions of years. A geological heartbeat. Each supercontinent shapes the Earth in its own way. As they form, mountains rise from their collisions. Oceans close. Land becomes vast and dry, with deserts stretching far from water's reach. Then, as they break apart, the sea returns. Shorelines expand. New ecosystems bloom along the coasts. And life changes with the land. Even now, you live in the legacy of that motion. The continents you know, North America, South America, Eurasia, Africa, Australia, Antarctica, are not permanent sculptures. They are travelers. Slow and deliberate. Riding atop great plates of crust that float on the mantle below. You do not feel it, not today, not tomorrow. But the land beneath you is moving. Drifting. Wandering. Like a sleepwalker searching for its home. Take a deep breath, and imagine the clock of Earth ticking not in seconds, but in hundreds of millions of years. Around 300 million years ago, Pangaea reached its fullness. A supercontinent at its prime. It held deserts in its heart, and life on its edges. But by 175 million years ago, the breakup had begun. You can still see its parting lines today. In the shape of coastlines. In the mirrored fossils on opposite sides of oceans. In the way mountain ranges align across continents like unspoken echoes. The Atlantic Ocean, now wide and deep, was once a rift. A newborn sea opening slowly between Africa and the Americas. The continents stretched away from each other. Not in violence, but in quiet determination. And even now, they continue to move. The Atlantic grows a little wider every year. The Pacific narrows. India still pushes into Asia, lifting the Himalayas skyward. Australia inches north. Antarctica stays still, holding ancient ice and ancient secrets. Every centimeter matters. Because over time, it adds up. And in 200 million years or so, the continents will meet again. A new supercontinent will form. Though we do not yet know its name. Some call it Pangaea Proxima, the next, All-Earth. Others call it Amasia, imagining the continents clustering around the Arctic. Some imagine the Pacific closing, drawing land into a global ring. Others dream of the Atlantic reversing, as the cycle folds back upon itself. We do not know the shape. But we know the story. Because the pattern is clear. It always returns. You are living on a page between chapters. But the book continues to write itself. And you are made of it. The calcium in your bones. The iron in your blood. The quartz in your watch. All came from ancient land, ancient collisions, ancient heat. You are not separate from this cycle. You are part of it. It is not just about land. The supercontinent cycle affects climate, life, and time. When continents gather, the world grows drier. Interior regions lose access to moisture. Deserts expand. Temperatures swing between extremes. When they drift apart, new coastlines emerge. Rainfall returns. Biodiversity blooms. The shifting of land shapes the atmosphere, the ocean, and the story of life itself. Many mass extinctions, like the one that ended the Permian, are linked to the supercontinent cycle. As Pangaea formed, volcanoes erupted. Greenhouse gases filled the air. Life was tested. But from extinction came renewal. As the continents broke apart, new habitats formed. Dinosaurs rose. Birds flew. Mammals emerged. You are a descendant of drift. A child of scattered continents. And when the continents gather again, life will shift once more. New species. New ecosystems. New possibilities. All of it, quietly shaped by tectonic memory. You do not need to see the plates move to know they are alive. Their paths are traced in seafloor stripes. Magnetic patterns frozen in time. Recording the Earth's shifting field. As new crust forms and old crust dives. They are carved into the mountains. Scars of ancient collisions. And whispered in fossil records. Plants and animals that once walked a united Earth. You may feel still tonight. But under you, everything is moving. Not quickly. But surely. The Earth is not chaotic. It is composed. It does not hurry. It cycles. In the end, everything drifts. And everything returns. You are part of that return. Your atoms, your breath, your quiet wonder. And just below the drifting plates. Beneath the crust and the ocean floor. A deeper mystery churns. A soft, glowing mantle, moving like slow honey. Carrying heat. Carrying history. Carrying the continents above. You close your eyes. And in the warmth below your thoughts. You feel it stir. The engine of the Earth itself. Feel the floor beneath you. Whether it is cool wood, soft carpet, or smooth stone, feel its stillness. It is the definition of solid. It is the foundation upon which your home is built, the unmoving stage upon which your life unfolds. When you walk outside, the pavement does not yield. The curb does not shift. The great, sleeping hills on the horizon are monuments to permanence, sentinels of stability. This feeling of solid ground is perhaps the first and most fundamental truth you ever learn. The world holds you. It is firm, reliable, and still. You can press your ear to the ground and hear only silence, the faint hum of distant traffic, or the whisper of wind through the grass. There is no groan of movement, no shudder of effort. Everything feels settled, at peace. And yet, this profound sense of stillness is the most beautiful and convincing illusion you will ever know. The planet beneath you is not still at all. It is breathing. It is shifting. It is alive in a way that is too slow, too vast, and too powerful for your senses to register directly. You are living on the skin of a giant, a mosaic of colossal pieces of Earth that are, at this very moment, drifting across the face of the globe. Their pace is impossibly slow, no faster than the growth of your own fingernails, but over the immense expanse of geological time, this silent journey has sculpted every feature of the world you know. Every mountain, every ocean, and every continent is a testament to this slow, relentless dance. The ground beneath you is not a fixed point, but a passenger on a journey that began long before you, and will continue long after you are gone. Tonight, you can feel that journey. You can close your eyes and imagine the silent, planetary hum, not through your ears, but through the deep, cellular memory of a world in constant, graceful motion. Imagine you are in a quiet room, with a map of the world spread out before you. The light is soft, and the only sound is your own gentle breath. You trace the edges of the continents. Let your finger glide along the eastern coast of South America, feeling its prominent, outward curve. Now, drift across the Atlantic Ocean, a vast expanse of deep blue, and trace the western coast of Africa. Notice its deep, inward bend. It feels like an echo, a mirror image. A question forms in your mind, a simple, childlike thought: what if they once fit together? What if this great ocean is just a space opened up between two lands that were once joined, like pieces of a torn letter? This is not just your question. It is a question that has whispered itself to mapmakers and thinkers for centuries. It was a thought that took root in the mind of a man named Alfred Wegener, a German scientist and explorer, in the early 20th century. He looked at the world map not as a static picture, but as a crime scene, full of clues to a forgotten past. He saw more than just the puzzle piece fit of the continents. He found other, deeper connections. He learned of fossils of the same ancient, land-dwelling reptiles and ferns found in both Brazil and West Africa. These creatures could not have swum across the vast, salty Atlantic. It was as if you found matching floorboards from the same ancient home, but one was in London and the other in New York. The only explanation is that the homes, or in this case, the lands, were once connected. Wegener's gaze swept further. He saw that the Appalachian Mountains in the eastern United States, which seemed to end abruptly at the sea, were made of the same type and age of rock as the mountains of Scotland and Scandinavia. It was as if a single, mighty mountain range had been unzipped, with half of it drifting west and the other half remaining in the east. He was collecting whispers from the past, assembling a story that the world seemed determined to tell. He called his idea, Continental Drift. He imagined the continents as great ships of granite, plowing through the softer rock of the ocean floor. At the time, many dismissed his ideas. The forces required to move entire continents seemed unimaginable. It was too grand, too radical. Wegener had a beautiful story, but he was missing the engine. He knew the continents had moved, but he couldn't explain how. The world was not yet ready to believe that the ground beneath their feet was a raft on a sea of hidden fire. So the question lingered in the air for decades, a beautiful but unproven theory, waiting for a journey into a world no human had ever seen, the deep, dark floor of the ocean. You can imagine yourself there now, descending into that hidden world. The sunlight fades above you, from blue to indigo to a perfect, velvety black. The pressure builds, a silent, heavy embrace. For most of human history, this realm was a complete mystery, imagined as a cold, featureless, and unchanging abyss. But in the middle of the 20th century, new technologies allowed us to finally map this secret landscape. And what we found was not a flat, sandy plain. It was a world of breathtaking geological drama. As your vessel glides through the darkness, its lights reveal a landscape more alien and magnificent than any on the surface. You are flying over a colossal mountain range, one that dwarfs the Andes, the Rockies, and the Himalayas combined. It is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a great seam that runs down the spine of the Atlantic Ocean, a scar on the face of the planet. But it is not a dead, cold scar. It is a place of birth. As you draw closer, you see cracks and fissures in the rock, and from them, superheated water billows out like smoke from a dragon's nostrils, thick with dark minerals. This is a hydrothermal vent, a gateway to the Earth's molten heart. Here, at this ridge, the planet's crust is being torn apart. Magma from the hot, soft layer below, the mantle, wells up to fill the gap. It meets the cold, deep ocean water and solidifies, forming new seafloor, new planetary skin. This process is happening right now, a constant, silent creation. And as new crust is born at the center of the ridge, it pushes the older crust away on either side, like a slow-moving conveyor belt. The seafloor itself is spreading. This was the engine Wegener was missing. The continents are not plowing through the ocean floor. They are being carried along by it, passive passengers on these immense, moving plates of crust. And the Earth, in its quiet wisdom, kept a record of this process. As the new, molten rock cooled, tiny magnetic minerals within it acted like microscopic compass needles, aligning themselves with the Earth's magnetic field at that moment in time. But the Earth's magnetic field is not stable. Every few 100,000 years, it flips, north becomes south, and south becomes north. This history of flips is recorded in the rocks of the seafloor. As scientists mapped the ocean floor, they found perfect, symmetrical stripes of magnetic polarity on either side of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a mirror image of reversals stretching back millions of years. It was an irrefutable ledger, the planet's own memory written in stone, proving that the seafloor was indeed spreading, carrying the continents with it. The Earth's surface was not a single, solid shell. It was a mosaic. This mosaic is made of about a dozen major tectonic plates and many more minor ones. They are all moving, interacting with one another in a slow, global ballet. These plates are slabs of the Earth's lithosphere, the rigid crust and the upper part of the mantle, and they float upon a hotter, softer, yielding layer below, the asthenosphere. Think of them as immense ice floes on a partially frozen sea. Their movement is driven by the heat escaping from the Earth's core, creating slow, powerful convection currents in the mantle that drag the plates along from below. Where these plates meet, their interactions shape the world. There are three main ways they can dance. The first is where they move apart, like at the mid-Atlantic ridge. This is a divergent boundary. It is a place of quiet creation, where new Earth is born from the depths, gently pushing the world apart. The island of Iceland is a rare place where such a boundary rises above the ocean, and you can literally stand in a valley with the North American plate on one side and the Eurasian plate on the other, the land visibly tearing itself apart. The second, and often most dramatic, interaction is where the plates collide. This is a convergent boundary. When two plates carrying continents on their backs collide, their rock is of similar density. Neither can easily sink. So, with unimaginable force, they crumple. The crust thickens, buckles, and is thrust upwards, forming the world's greatest mountain ranges. The Himalayas, the highest mountains on Earth, are the result of the Indian plate crashing, and still crashing, into the Eurasian plate. You can close your eyes and imagine this collision in ultra-slow motion, two giants pressing against each other for millions of years, their edges folding into the sky. When an oceanic plate collides with a continental plate, the denser oceanic plate is forced to bend and slide beneath the continental plate, a process called subduction. The old oceanic crust sinks back into the mantle, where it is melted down and recycled. This process creates deep ocean trenches and fuels a line of volcanoes along the coast of the continent, like the Ring of Fire that encircles the Pacific Ocean. It is a place of both destruction and renewal, where the Earth swallows its own skin. The third type of interaction is where two plates slide horizontally past each other. This is a transform boundary. The San Andreas Fault in California is the most famous example. Here, the Pacific plate is grinding northwards past the North American plate. For long periods, the immense friction between the two rough edges causes them to lock together. But the underlying forces do not stop. Strain builds up, silently, year after year, decade after decade. The rock bends and deforms until the strain becomes too great. Then, in a sudden, violent release, the plates lurch forward, and the built-up energy escapes as seismic waves. This is an earthquake, the shudder of the Earth as it corrects its own tension, the planetary giant letting out a held breath. This continuous dance of the plates is the master architect of our world. It is a story told not just in stone, but in water and in life. The shifting of continents changes the path of ocean currents, which in turn alters the global climate. The raising of mountain ranges creates rain shadows, turning one side into a lush paradise and the other into a desert. The separation of lands isolates populations of animals and plants, allowing them to evolve in unique ways, driving the engine of biodiversity. The very air you breathe is tied to this process, as volcanic activity releases gases and the weathering of new rock removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Bring your awareness back to your own body, to the quiet space you inhabit. The ground beneath you feels solid, but you now know its secret. You are part of a system of such immense scale and slowness that it appears perfectly still. The iron in your blood was forged in the heart of a star, but the calcium in your bones and the salts in your cells were weathered from rocks that were lifted from the seafloor by the collision of continents. The peaceful valley you may see from your window could be a place where the crust is gently stretching apart. The rolling hills on the horizon might be the ancient, worn-down remnants of a mountain range that was once as mighty as the Alps, created by a continental collision that ended hundreds of millions of years ago. You are living not on a static ball of rock, but on a dynamic, breathing planet. Its restlessness is not a flaw, it is the sign of its life. This movement, this constant recycling of the crust, is what keeps the Earth geologically and biologically active. It replenishes the nutrients in the soil, regulates the climate, and creates the diverse habitats that allow life, in all its wondrous forms, to flourish. The slow, silent journey of the plates is the heartbeat of the world. So feel the stillness around you one more time. Feel its weight, its comfort. And now, hold within that feeling the knowledge of the deep, slow journey you are on. You are a passenger on spaceship Earth, and the ship itself is constantly remaking itself around you. The floor is solid, but the plate it rests upon is drifting. The mountains are eternal, but they are rising or falling. The ocean is vast, but it is opening or closing. You feel the solid ground beneath you, a single piece of a slow-motion puzzle. But the movement of these pieces is not random, it is powered by a tremendous, ancient heat from within.